Join us tonight for UCR Presents an interview with Bianca Biasi. We will discuss her documentary series, The Space Between, her other projects, as well as talk all things paranormal.
Hey everyone, and welcome to a very special Uncensored Radio Presents, I guess we'll call it. If you are a fan of all things spooky and wonderful, we have a great show for you tonight. We have tonight in Australia anyway, and we're all Australian at the moment, so yay! We have a very special guest, Miss Bianca Biasi. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me, Steve. And Luke.
So, Bianca, tell us a little bit about yourself so the people at home know exactly what we're in for tonight.
Okay, yeah, sure. Look, I'm a filmmaker. So I've been in the industry since I was about 14. Started in front of camera, but absolutely fell in love with behind scenes. So that's where I kind of focused. And I was shooting a really crappy low budget horror film and ended up at the Q station. And some really bizarre things happened. And the Q station was always kind of a little bit of a sore spot for me because I lived locally pretty much all my life, and when you live locally to the quarantine station, you grow up on these pretty scary ghost stories. My brother was a bit of a fanatic, and he used to come home and scare the crap out of me. So I actually had never really been there until we shot the horror film. And then all this weird stuff started to happen. I'd actually had quite a significant paranormal experience as a child that I had pushed aside. So look, when we kind of were experiencing this stuff, it brought a lot of stuff up, and I felt compelled to seek answers. And that is how the documentary, The Space Between, was born.
Yeah, your brother seems to be, the prototype big brother, scaring the absolute crap out of your younger siblings with stories. Nice, very nice. But it seems to be a very fitting time for us to be talking about Quarantine Station because if you're not in Australia at the moment and you're not in New South Wales, we've just been put into Bianca's been put into lockdown, right?
Yes, that's right. I'm stuck at home.
Living the dream. So we probably just picked a good time to actually sit down and have an interview with you to break the monotony.
I've got nothing else to do.
Yay! But so let's talk a little bit about the Quarantine Hauntings before we get started, your film. So it was shot on location, obviously.
It was. It's the
you
film,
guys even had your premiere there, right? Your little premiere you had there? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, look, we call it the film that taught us how to make film. Because everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. And basically we had a very interesting kind of thing to take place. I mean, look, the equipment was, really mucking up in certain places of the site. And, initially we kind of put it down to bad, whatever, sometimes you've just got things that go wrong, but it started to kind of happen very frequently. And besides that, we kind of had other camera issues and stuff like that we were told by the manufacturers could be graded out. So by the time we got to post-production, half of our film was affected, so we needed to think on our feet. So yeah, it was a very interesting process. But a lot of really crazy stuff happened on that set. So
you often hear that though, like
another horror film there again.
I was going to say, with a lot of indie filmmakers, so their first trip out is usually like pretty, it's a learning curve where you learn your craft and you learn from your mistakes. What made you want to shoot your film there?
Well, basically, the first thing that I thought of when we thought horror film, and the reason why we chose a horror film was because usually they're really cheap to make and you get away with a lot, because a lot of horror films aren't really well made. So we thought that was quite safe. But the first place that I thought of when I thought horror film was the Quarantine Station, because it's, it petrified me as a child. You know, thanks to my brother, I must say, you know, he really, you know, that was the main ghost story for me. That and obviously Wakers Parkway, which is another local area to us. But yeah, so when I thought horror film, I thought, well, that has to be the place. That's, you know, and we thought that it would be great if we shot it at an actual haunted location as well, you know, because I think there's a little bit of authenticity to that, you know. It's like, yeah, well, if you're going to shoot a horror film, you know, go to a scary place. I mean, it's great for the actors.
I was going to say, yeah, you want them to be really scared, don't you?
Yeah, they were.
Excellent. Obviously, you've grown up with these stories, but have experienced it in real life is obviously something that drove more interest towards actually getting a bit closer to the truth of the situation, I'm guessing, as well.
Absolutely. Look, I got to be honest with you. When I kind of embarked on this, even though we had a lot of, you know, really freaky kind of stuff happened on set, there was still in the back of my mind, because I had, you know, with my paranormal experience as a child, because it was so shut down, you know, it's something that I never really explored any further for a really long time, because, you know, it was shut down really, really quickly. And so I went in there quite the skeptic. And I was kind of going, look, things are happening, but, you know, I was trying to think scientifically, okay, how can you have another explanation for these things? And you kind of rattle off some stuff and you kind of go, yeah, well, you can kind of, you know, swear them off in your mind. So going in to the documentary, there was a curiosity, especially because, you know, of my own experience. But I went in there, you know, thinking that we weren't really going to find anything. I never knew the journey that I was about to embark on. And it ended up being a massive awakening for me, you know, in general. Like, it was amazing how, you know, when I say paranormal, to me, paranormal really is really normal, because I think that we are designed to dismiss so much of what is around us that is actually around us all the time. And I'm not just talking about entities and stuff like that, but there's synchronicities, there's, you know, energetic things that we can't deny. Everyone experiences them, but we're not really taught to focus on them. So I was not expecting to have a full-blown awakening on this journey. I've got to tell you that. And then where it ended up, you know, really opened my eyes to a lot of different things. And, you know, I now have a connection with this realm that I never really thought I would have. So yeah, it's been a very interesting journey.
It's funny you talk of that, you know, the connection to the other side. I had this random conversation with a patient of mine today who just had a near-death experience where she was brought to us almost palliated. She had had a heart attack and was going to die, and then she came back, and she sort of talked a little bit about her experience there. And I was talking to her then, I was like, isn't it funny, that whole experience of death, like everyone's so anxious about it and so scared of it, yet anyone who's been in the room with someone who dies, there's this peace that comes over everybody. And like, I've experienced it many times in my life, in my profession. And she said, yeah, the same thing happened to me. She said, I was so resigned to die. I was just so calm. She said, my sister who was there said she was so calm. And then, you know, she came back. And it's just one of those things that, like, you know, people are so scared of this other, but what's there to be really afraid of?
It does make sense. It really does make sense. So you were paramedic?
Nurse, RM.
You're a nurse, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you would see a lot. Yeah, look, it is an interesting thing. And to be quite honest, with all the research we've been doing, and we've been doing a lot of research, I've also had a near-death experience myself. So I have firsthand experience with what people are talking about. So it is a very interesting question, and I think that what I find really fascinating is that when we got into looking at M theory, Dr. Edward Witten, with string theory, M theory, and the multi-dimensions, there was a lot of things that really made sense. And, this idea that we are energetic beings, and that's scientifically proven, and everybody knows that, there really is no such thing as true death, I guess you would say, if what the data is saying is true. And it is quite consistent with the reports of people that have had those near-death experiences, because I think the calmness is the fact that, the realization that, you're still aware, you're still present, maybe not in a physical body, but, it's not like all of a sudden everything switches off. Every person that I've spoken to, there's been really consistent experiences. It's very similar. Variations definitely, because I think we're coming at it from, you still are coming at it from different perspectives. Whatever you believed in this lifetime, I guess there's certain things that may influence, your experience, your transition experience, I guess. But there's very consistent reports, and it's very consistent with what science says. It's like, well, what do we really have to be afraid of if, the fact is that we just kind of change form. It's not really death, it's a transformation.
Yeah.
And then when you look at these, if you kind of look into, even if you go down kind of, the Buddhist monks, the really extreme Buddhist monks, and other kind of sections of cultures and people that are into very high level meditation and all that kind of stuff, they experience they talk about a very similar experience actually. And they can still bring themselves back to their body, but it's very consistent with what people are reporting to experience if they've had a near-death experience. So it's quite interesting that, I think that it's true that we can actually access, other dimensions and other out-of-body experiences, kind of like astral travel. And, it's, it depends what you believe really and what you've experienced. I think unless you truly experience something yourself, I think it's a very hard subject matter to get your head around. Because it is quite out there, and I think a lot of people are very fearful of it.
So, speaking of personal experiences, we're going to jump straight into your... we're calling it a series? We are calling it a series, aren't we? The Space Between. The Space Between is, as we've just discussed, set at Manly Quarantine Station. Probably one of Australia's most notoriously haunted areas. I'm doing this in air quotes for the people that don't believe, but it is definitely a place that if you visit and if you're open to it and just ready to experience it, the place definitely delivers. We were talking before we came on air. I actually have a little bit of a past with the quarantine station. Every time I've been there, I've had some kind of experience. It's not mass. Sometimes it's not massive. Sometimes it is, but it's probably one of the most active places I've ever been in my life, and it has a very different sense of feeling. And that's what I was saying to Bianca before we were on air. Even from the very first second when you started to do the aerial shots of the place, it is your documentary gives it a really good sense of place. If you've been in the Q station, you can feel it in this show. And I think that's a huge credit to you guys. It's amazing.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Yeah, look, I think we spent so much time there that if that didn't come through, then yes, we would have been failing quite badly. So yeah, thanks for that. I'm glad that
No,
you can
right.
feel the place, because it does have a very distinct feel, you know.
It does. And for people that don't understand it, it is a beautiful place. Like, look at these views, people.
Gorgeous.
Like, it is a gorgeous, gorgeous slice of land that just happens to have this huge historical importance to not only Sydney, but the country as a whole. And it's, as we were saying before, it seems just so much synchronicity that we're talking about Quarantine Station in the middle of this new pandemic that that is sweeping the world. I think you guys deserve a lot of credit for actually getting the feel of a place, because so many of these paranormal shows and documentaries, it's about the presenters and about what they're finding, whereas you're giving us as much history as you can, because it's a notoriously hard place to get, a lot of nailed down history on, as well as, the stories and everything that kind of coalesces in that one spot. It was a very sacred space to the native people as well, and it just seems to just be that nexus point of something. If you've got to go, if you're in Australia, you have to go, because there's so much calm. It's a really weird feeling. There's a sense of calmness there, but you can feel the history because it's around you. You can touch it, you can look at it, you can go and experience it. And I think we're really lucky to have a place like that, considering, it was active for over 150 years, and it was 13,000, right? 13,000 people went through. And almost 600 deaths. So and this is the thing. The recorded history is what what do you do?
The recorded history was pretty poor. So there's probably, a lot more than what's being recorded. But you've said something very interesting, and this is what I was really grappling with when I was on site. Yes, it has this, traumatic history, and there are definitely areas of the site that feel very dense. But it is a very high vibrational place. And I think that that's what's so fascinating about the Quarantine Station. It is sacred, Indigenous land. So it was known as, a very special place, from an Indigenous perspective, a very sacred place. So when you kind of walk around the Quarantine Station and especially at night, I had two very different experiences. One was there's a certain area where a lot of the deaths kind of took place that, you can feel the trauma of place. I guess that's what you would say. And I think that you would feel that even if you didn't know anything about it. But then there's this other side to the Quarantine Station that is so peaceful and so beautiful. And, you can sit there and meditate and feel so connected, and it's just amazing, and I think that's just what is so wonderfully, fascinating about this site. It's it's that contrast. And what I really feel, and especially what I really discovered on this journey, is it seems to have a lot of, and I think maybe this is why the synchronicities were so high, but the place itself, I would liken to what we kind of experience through our life journeys. We have to have contrast. There's always these pockets of trauma that we're kind of working through, but there's, such, expansion and lightness that kind of comes with our evolution. And I just feel that it's just such a perfect mirror for that, because unless you actually go on site and spend time on site, it's very hard to explain it until you've experienced it. But I think that this is what makes this site so different from any other site that you would call a trauma-bound site, a historical trauma-bound site. I haven't really heard anyone else really speak of any other sites in this way. And it definitely has a very different contrasting feel to it. So, and we actually explore a lot of that, in further seasons, but there is a reason for it, which I can't give away right now, but we did kind of trace a lot of the history back, and when we discovered some things, it all kind of made sense. So it's special. It's a special site.
The complexity of everything too, doesn't it, though? Like, nothing's ever just like a straightforward narrative. There's just so much history, layers and layers and layers.
I'm looking at Steve and I'm kind of going, I think because Steve's been on the site, I'm looking at you, Steve, and I can see in your eyes, you know what I'm talking about. So obviously you've had the same kind of experience.
Definitely. We're going to get into the good stuff, but I was just about to say, you've got to look at it for fact. It is some of the best views in Sydney, and then it is the place where no one wanted to be. You know what I mean? No, it's the place where no one wanted to be, and it must have been so hard for those people that were so close to getting into their new home, their new country, to be able to see the lights of the city. Oh, well, even back then, you'd probably be able to see the lights of the city, but be so far away from it. Do you know what I mean? So close yet so far. It's just, it's a very, Luke, you're gonna have to come to Sydney when everything's lifted, and we'll go to Q Station. It'll be fun. I promise you.
When things are less crazy.
Yeah. We should get into the good stuff because it's what they want to hear. The people want to hear the scary stuff. So, I think you had a really unique position, Bianca, because so often when you're investigating a haunted site, you're in and out in a night or 2 nights. Exactly how long have you been at Quarantine Station now?
A very long time. We have shot other projects there, so with the documentary we were kind of doing it around other projects. So I've been on site for quite a few years. I think it's about 7 years or something like that. Maybe more. We've shot several projects, and this was kind of something that we were doing in the interim because things started to unravel, and really this documentary took a life of its own. It really ended up becoming a full-blown journey, and it was like, as I was experiencing things and expanding on a personal level, the environment was doing the same. It's almost like things were lining up, and there was, you've seen the documentary, so you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it was a very unique experience. I've got to tell you, it's not what I signed up for. I was expecting to be in and out pretty quick, not to really, definitely go on a journey. There's so much history, and there's so many reportings, sightings, experiences. So we knew we had the content, but where it took a life of its own. That's the only thing that I can really put it down to. It really did. It's like energetically, it took a life of its own.
That's what the place is. The place has a life of its own. It's very much as weird as it sounds. As weird as it sounds for people, and we keep saying this if you haven't been there. The place has personality. The place has personality. The different buildings have personalities. Yeah. You can be fine in one area and walk around a corner and break into goosebumps. It's a very rare and special place, as I've said before. So let's get into the good stuff. All right. So as I said, I lived in Sydney for just 18 months. I was doing a full-time performing arts course at the time, but I'd done 3 tours at the Quarantine Station, and then kind of forced my way in a little bit and tried to get a job there. So I was like, hey, if you need anyone to da-da-da-da-da, yep, sweet, no worries. So I did a couple of shifts down at the Wharf District there at the visitors center, and then also applied for a tour guide job, which I got to go on a couple of other bonus tours, little freebies to whet the appetite. But ended up moving home, sadly. But I have had my fair share of time and fun at quarantine station myself. So I would love to see how our experiences match up, because the people, none of my friends are interested in this kind of stuff. So I'm just like, well, this happened. Da, 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 da. They're like, yeah, okay. I'm like, okay, amazing. So your office, your production office was where, Bianca? Tell us about that.
It was predominantly down at the Wharf Precinct. So the old laundry. Which I'm laughing, and I know you're laughing because I know we've probably had similar experiences there. But it's a very interesting location.
It
very
is.
At, 4:00 in the morning. But
but that's the thing. When there's people around, it's fine. There's a vibe. There's a vibe, but there's a really positive and happy vibe, especially with the restaurant nearby and all that kind of thing. Yeah. There's functions, there's life there.
Beach,
and you're checking people in for their tours and whatnot, and then I'll never forget. All right, we're gonna leave you here we're gonna leave you here while the tour's on. I'm like, okay, great. And then I think it was Julie. She was like, by the way, if this happens, 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 please don't freak out. Just remain calm and walk out of the building. I'm like, oh, great. She's like, okay, bye. I'm like, oh, amazing. Cool. Thanks for that. But
and what happened, I bet.
Oh, well, look. I, being the curious little cougar that I am, was, waiting and doing my job and making sure everything was all neat and tidy, and went for a little walk around the visitors center in there. And it's fine. You walk into that first area where the cafe is, and everything's fine, and cool. Yeah. As soon as you walk around that first corner, something happens. And I just, I'm like, all right, there's someone here. Someone's watching me. Someone's walking around. And until you come out the other side, at the end of that visitor center, I can breathe again. It's okay. I can breathe again. There's nothing watching me. There was someone's definitely following you around, and that's what she was saying. They're curious. New people usually get a tap on the head, so I didn't receive a tap on the head. I'm a bit sad about that, but definitely had a bit of experience there. But you were there late night, 4 a.m., craziness. So
we did a lot of timers.
How do you reconcile that, with your with the psychology of going, hey, I'm in one of Australia's most haunted sites, looking at all this stuff? Is it setting yourself up for, you know what I mean?
Look, I think my advantage is walking in. I wasn't really expecting anything. I was expecting to kind of, experience things, but then, have very quick ways of justifying those experiences. So
debunk things almost.
Yeah. So I think that was a really good thing that I was walking in there as someone that was skeptical. I think that really, because, when you actually do experience something, you're looking at it from a very different perspective. It's not like you're saying yes to everything, because I think that is problematic. I think that's something about the paranormal realm that never gelled with me. It's like, well, come on. I mean, there's stuff that you can just easily prove that's what, it's that or that or that. So that, I think that walking in that way really served the project majorly. Because every experience that was had was thoroughly researched and was genuine. We didn't if we were very harsh with a lot of the evidence, to be quite honest. We, there was a lot of stuff that we had that we didn't include that I'm sure a lot of other people probably would have. But, the stuff that we included, was solid. It was solid stuff.
Yeah.
And it's good to go in that way too, because, growing up in the area, there are so many stories that people tell you, you're going to go there and you're going to feel this and you're going to feel that. And you're like, well, I don't really want to know that. I want to go in there and feel what I feel and see what I see. You know what I mean? And having that bias is not really serving anyone. But okay.
No, then you're looking for it. And I think that when you're looking for it, the big question is are you actually experiencing it, or is your mind finding what you're expecting to find?
And I think we've all been on those ghost tours where we've had those other people on the tours that'll, this is happening, that's happening. It's like, no, bitch, it's not. No, it's not. Like, whatever's happening in your world, sure, but it's not happening for us.
Whatever's happening in your brain is your brain. Okay. There's always some of those special types on every ghost tour too. I can feel the guy. Yeah, okay.
It makes it fun too. I mean, that's entertaining as well. And I
absolutely
love it. I love bringing people to the site also that I know that are really scared of this stuff, because I mean, I must say I was horrible to kind of to my crew because I would deliberately scare the shit out of them. Like, we had a beautiful makeup artist and her assistant, and they ended up leaving halfway through the night, so they never stayed.
Bianca.
But we were tapping on the windows and 3 o'clock in the morning and being a little bit mean, but so I'm like horrible to people like that, because I love scaring them, but it's entertaining, but and that I think that's got its purpose, and also I think that you can't rule out as well that people, it's their reality. It might not be what we experience, but definitely people that are extremely frightened of that stuff, they're having an experience that's their reality. So who are we to kind of go, well, we're going to discredit all of it? You get what I mean? It's like, it's their reality. That's their experience. So,
Well, and fair enough too. And I think that's why you brought in the science side of everything too, because, there's all this personal experience and then all this emotional experience. And then, that's when you brought in Anne and Renata to sort of throw in that, that real, like, trying to capture things that are like evidence on camera that you can't dispute. It's not emotional, it's not personal, it's like just there, objective.
Absolutely. And what I loved about Anne and Renata, besides the fact that they're freaking awesome and they're the funniest people that you'll ever meet in your life, is that they're really thorough. And even Roman, because Anne's husband, he comes from a scientific background, and he's great because he just goes, no. And that's great, because it's like, there might have been, 90% or 94% of stuff that he's just gone, don't even look at that. Don't even look at it. Look at this, and then we will still rule out bits and pieces. And that's what I like about these guys. We did kind of work with some other teams that we didn't include. And basically what we found, with Anne and Renata and Roman, they were the real deal. They came in there and they really did their job, and they have a very logical approach. They're not these people that kind of go, ooh, that was this or that was this. They went in there with their gear and they thoroughly looked at the stuff and kind of said, yeah, well, this is the stuff we need to look at. And they're so knowledgeable. So that was really helpful for us, because obviously I'm not a ghost hunter. So I didn't know any about you know, I didn't know how to start looking for ghosts. I mean, you know, not my job.
Not my job. I tell people where to go, where the cameras go. You know. All right, we're going to talk about a few of the locations because the show does it so well. But I want to talk to you about the hospital because the hospital is the one place that I actually haven't had anything happen. And everyone is like, oh, the hospital, the hospital, hospital. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, there's definitely a vibe up there, but I've never had anything happen. What's your vibe on the hospital? Have you had personal experience there, or have you just...
I have. So I have had personal experiences there. But what I'll say to you about the hospital is very interesting that you say that, and it doesn't surprise me because, you know, out of some of the, I mean, there's some of the other locations where pretty much every night you would get some sort of a something. What I found about the hospital is you would get nothing for a really long time, and then you'd get a really big hit. So it has a very interesting, but even when nothing is happening, if you're really tuned in, it's a bit too nothing. I know that sounds weird, but it's like, you know, the air is different.
It's very still. It's very still.
The silence is different. Yeah, and I think that kind of puts you on edge straight away because you know you're walking into an environment that doesn't quite feel right. But a lot of the times nothing would happen, you know. Yeah, a lot of the times there was nothing that, you know, I mean, I spent heaps of time up there. Funnily, when we were filming the horror, that was one of the most active places that was messing around with the equipment. So, you know, we tried to kind of see, is it because the positioning of the place? I mean, is there, I don't know, is there a tower or something nearby or whatever? But as far as paranormal experiences, yeah, it is very still. It's a very still place.
That's the word that comes to mind when I think of it. Like, it can be windy and freezing cold outside, and you can stand inside and watch the trees move, but
nothing.
You don't feel it. You don't feel it.
No.
There's just a stillness and and that could be down to the, you know, the energies that are in there. The matron is very notorious. You know what I mean? I'm sure she runs a tight ship. So if she wants stillness and control, that's what you'll get.
Well, I was going to say the first psychic that you brought through, that was like her first thing. Everything was very like, there was no drama. She was just very matter of fact. She's like, the matron's there.
She's here. She's standing there. She's not actually very happy with us being here.
She's not wearing red, as the mannequin had on. But she wasn't. There was nothing alarming. She was just saying like, that's where she is, and she's not happy, but she's looking at us and rah.
Yeah. No, and I think that's kind of the interesting thing about, you know, I mean, look, I know that there's a lot of contradicting belief systems as far as, you know, what the spirit world is, or you know, even if there's good and bad kind of spirits. My opinion on it is, you know, from what I've experienced and just the research that we've done is, you know, I mean, the main thing that links all these kind of things is trauma. So I don't know if I believe that there are evil spirits. Like, I don't think I do. I mean, actually, I don't. I don't. I think that there is, you know, definite marks of trauma that can change the feel of the experience of the energy about a place. But you know, I mean, if we're really looking at the energetic realm, technically we're all made of universal energy, and that energy is light. The one thing that we know, and even if you want to look at it physically, so not just trauma of place, but even if you're looking at trauma within, and I'll use medical trauma as a example, because that you can see on a, you know, basically a an X-ray or whatever, ultrasound, you see, like, if someone's got lung cancer or whatever, you see a dark mass, right? And in the energetic realm, that's, when you look at science, if there has been a trauma in an energetic field, you do get this dark mass. So whether it's in the body or whether it's, outside, it's very consistent with that. So I think that what people are feeling is, imprints of what has been there. And then don't forget, because people keep repeating these stories, I'm not sure if you've heard of the Phillips experiment, but and we go into this in the next season, but it's proven that the more that you talk about something, you make it energetically stronger. So, I think that it's important to take all these things into consideration when you're looking at these things, because really think about how often people are talking about the trauma at the quarantine station.
Yeah.
And that is adding weight, and you can't ignore that. Like that has to be a major factor. So are they evil spirits? I definitely don't get that feeling. I get a very jovial feel there, in the sense that if you want to believe in spirits, if you want to kind of go down that road, then what I'm feeling is playfulness. And yeah, they'll scare the shit out of you. But it's all done in good humor, I guess, because, look, I think that what, and universal energy has that playful, childlike kind of feel where it can go either way. It can be really light or it can be mischievous, just like we can. But, so I don't really believe that, there's these real kind of evil spirits. I just think that there's been a lot of trauma there.
And it's like, as we were talking about energy, what you put out comes back to you. So if you're looking for that darkness, if you're looking for something to interact in a darker way, you're gonna get it. Especially, all right, we'll talk about the scary spots that everyone wants to know about and da. Let's talk about the grave diggers cottage. Now, I've had my experiences here. What about yourself?
There is a very distinct energy when you walk in there, and it's more to the back. I find it's very, very strong at the back. But yeah, you walk in and there is this, there's this real sense that
there's an overbearing
sense. There is. Yeah. But what's interesting is that, that is also on one of the, the highest points of the quarantine station. So energetically, you're on a higher kind of frequency anyway. But there is definitely towards the back, there's definitely and if you kind of believe the stories, historically, there was, a lot of stuff that kind of went on in that area.
And rumours of stuff that went on there too. Like
rumours of stuff, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The history is so hard to pin down that, those rumours could be true, those rumours could be false, but we're never going to know.
I think what we found interesting is we were, we interviewed a few people, and some of it we included and some of it we didn't. But, apparently a lot of Indigenous people actually refuse to walk past that point. So they don't walk past the Gravediggers Cottage, and because then you've got Isolation Road, and Isolation Road. I know this is going to sound really weird, but when you're walking it at night and you even look up at the trees themselves look different. Like it's a very high peak, and I wouldn't necessarily say. I think you can feel the trauma, because a lot of the really sick people obviously there, but there's also the duality that there's a very high vibration there as well. So I think that because there's a mixture of things going on, I think that can be quite overwhelming because you don't really know, you can't pinpoint what you're picking up on. It's too contradictive. It's, it's pretty out there.
But
I think we've kind of, outside of even that environment in particular, like, look, I've worked in places, especially like one was an old nuns convent that was also a boarding school for girls. Like the history there, and there was a lot of trauma there because, back in the day there was the unwed mothers and things like that. There's just so much going on, and you can be there at night and you can feel things and you just know there's something going on, but it's not like a film where it will jump out at you and it's so black and white. Like, but you'll come away and you'll be like, I really just experienced that, and I know I did. But how do you explain that to somebody else until they've gone through it too?
Until they've experienced it.
Yeah. So you get lucky enough to see something like that. Like, for example, I was in the gravedigger's cottage. I was sitting in that second bedroom.
That second bedroom.
by myself. I'm like, whatever. I've done this. I've been here before. I know what this place feels like. So everyone else was walking around, and I was sitting there, looking at the cupboard, eyes on that cupboard, and I will be damned if that door did not open so controlled, so slowly.
Happens
I'm
a
like,
lot.
this is happening. But that cupboard, closing that cupboard is an effort, because when you close it, it actually makes the sound of wood against wood.
Yeah.
That friction, that high-pitched friction sound.
Yeah.
It doesn't make that sound when it's open and by itself, and you're sitting there going, okay, right, good to know. And I was like, so one of the guys walked past, like, how's it going? I'm like, well, the door's open again. She's like, what? I'm like, yeah, the door's opening. Someone's in here.
I've got to tell you, that one really stumped us. Because the one in the hospital opens quite a lot as well. And we were even doing things like jumping and stomping in front of it to try to make the door open.
Oh, yeah.
You get what I mean? Try to see whether it was, did we just walk on a floorboard that, had a domino effect and open the door. But what was really interesting is it would just open at the most random times. It was like so random. There could be no movement, and all of a sudden it would just open. And it is. It's an effort to close that door.
Yeah. I was sitting on that. There was people in the room with me. They had cameras, they had everything. Photos. I'm like, radio, I'll just stay here. They walked out probably 5 seconds later. They're like, you wanted to see this? It's like, okay. Well, I saw it. The other people that had the cameras and everything didn't see it, but I definitely saw it. So congratulations. And on the tour before that, someone did get pushed on the way in and left the tour.
Yeah,
they were done. It's like, okay, bye. So that's my gravedigger's cottage story so far. I'm definitely keen to go back. I'm always keen to go back.
Well, I'm glad you're keen to go back. That was one location that I don't think any of us really like to be in. It just has a fun feeling to it. Like, it's just it's creepy, and
Yeah. But I'd rather feel something than just sit and go,
well,
it's okay.
That's true. That's true. I would probably say that, for me, the shower blocks I find really fascinating.
Oh, we're going to talk about that, girl.
Yeah, I think it's because it's a whole dimensional experience, because you walk in there and sometimes the smell in there is really strong, and sometimes there's no odor at all. But there is this, there is this really, it's very quiet in there. And even more, we're going way more extreme than the hospital. There is there's a movement within that stillness that cannot be explained. And we tried to capture it on camera, because it's, we had GoPros up and everything running all the time, Yeah.
There were so many of them, though, drawn to that same shower stall, though, weren't there, Bianca?
Sorry, what was that?
There there was that one shower stall that a lot of people were drawn to.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is we were all drawn to it. So it wasn't just, the sensitives. We were all drawn to it, including crew members that don't believe in this stuff, that particular stall was interesting, very fascinating.
Yeah. But you'll walk through that space and something will catch you. Like, do you know what I mean? You'll walk through it and you'll go, oh, I have to look here.
I have to look there. Yeah, that's right.
I have to stop, or I have to go back and I have to look here. I don't want to get anyone in trouble, so I'm going to tell a story. So I'm not going to say which tour guide it was. But me and one of my friends from primary school went down and did a Valentine's Day tour because we're so romantic together. And we were being, because we're both interested in single. we were being helpful and carrying stuff. And she's like, oh, what are you guys doing? Like, oh, we're just going to drive back to Newcastle. She goes, oh, okay, I've got to go and lock up everything. Do you want to spend some time in the shower block? I was like, rightio, let's do it. So she locked the doors behind us as she left for 15 minutes to go around the site. Me, my friend, one small torch and a video camera. I was like, this is the bravest thing I think I've ever done in my life. But yeah, that energy, whoever is hanging around up in that back left-hand corner that you can chase all night long if you want to, that's one of the head scratches that I have no answer for, because I saw you, whoever you are in there. I saw you. I saw this dude, whoever this dude is that's hanging around, likes to peek around the corner and all that kind of stuff. We followed him, and then he would disappear, and we'd go back to the start, and he'd be back there again, and we're trying to debunk it with shadows and all this kind of thing. And yeah, you'll walk halfway up an aisle and go, oh, I've got to stop at this. Why am I stopping here? I don't know. But yeah, that's one of those. That wants, whatever's there wants your attention, definitely.
And you know what, and Bianca, I have to say, let Dean know that it was the most entertaining part is when he just got the fuck out of there. He was just like, bam. After the door slammed, he was like, I'm out.
You're the ghost hunter. You're not supposed to run. He's awesome. He's so funny, Dean. Oh God, he's good value. Yeah, and look, what's so interesting about the shower blocks is you consistently every night will, you're always looking over your shoulder. It's consistent. That for me was the one location that really stumped me. It really fascinated me because there was a consistent feel to that location. So some nights it was stronger than others, but it was very consistent. Where the other locations, we would have many nights that absolutely, nothing. It was like, there's nothing here tonight.
And it's funny that you can have those blank nights. You know what I mean? Everyone expects, and I think it's from being conditioned from these ghost hunting shows that, time to dance. It's the tour started at 11 o'clock. Turn on the ghost. It's time to go. But they don't play that way.
No. And I think that, something that I, really observed as well, because we brought a lot of different people through. We were doing a lot of experiments, just, left, right, and center. We were trying to kind of cover everything that we could. And I tended to notice that the energy really mirrored the people. So it was really dependent on, because I would talk to the people afterwards and whether they were sensitives or whether they were just groups of people that we were bringing through, because we did that as well. We just thought, let's get a spectrum of what people are experiencing. And I was so much more fascinated with people's individual stories and what they were actually experiencing in their life at the time, because I could see that when it was on, it was reflecting whatever was going on in their internal space. That's something that I find really fascinating, really fascinating. So I think that it's very clear to me why some people experience this stuff and some people don't. And then we have so many people that we've spoken to that have never experienced anything paranormal that they would, pick as paranormal in their life. But then all of a sudden, they have a major experience. And the first question I ask people now is, what was going on at the time for you? Did you have some sort of trauma going on, or what was your mental state in the sense of how was your life? How are you feeling emotionally? And I have not had a situation yet where the experience in some way didn't mirror what was actually going on for them. So I think that this is something that we look more into in the later seasons, and the stuff that we've found is extremely fascinating. But that was definitely consistent as well. That the really still nights, it was because I don't know, everyone was really cruising. It was really light and not a lot of things kind of happened, but it seemed to kind of step up when we had someone with us, or a few people with us that were going through stuff internally that we.
So what you're saying is that you need to cast some really highly unstable people to make the show like full on for you.
Well, it's not really just unstable. I mean, I think that we all have our stuff. We all have trauma, and sometimes it's dormant. Because we. It's manageable at the time, or, something we're buried, it hasn't come up. But then all of a sudden we have a life experience that triggers and drags stuff up. So it's not really unstable people. It's just more, even with the crew. I mean, sometimes, we had one crew member, I remember there was a period of a week that was like really active, and we were just going, why the fuck is it so active? It's just crazy, And we had one crew member that we noticed was a bit off, and you kind of get a feeling when someone wants to talk and someone doesn't want to talk. And at the end of the week, we finally got a chance to sit down and have a proper conversation. And he was going through a breakup, a really, really messy breakup, and that was interesting because we started to see these patterns where the internal emotions of the people that were there started to really dictate the experiences that were happening on the outside. So
it was affecting energy.
That was really and that's, look, if you look at energy, it makes complete sense because energy fluctuates. So, one thought or the way we feel they're like, waves, frequency waves, or spirals, they kind of go like this or like this. That's kind of how energy moves. And our internal, reflection definitely has an outer influence. So, I think that's something that really fascinated me. It was really hearing, people's stories, and especially the sensitives. Like, it became so apparent so quickly for us that people that, and I don't call them psychics or mediums, I call them sensitives, because I think that, people that are sensitive or people that are empathetic is probably the best terminology that I find is accurate. They've had a lot of trauma, particularly in childhood, I noticed. And that was really, really prominent. And it actually makes sense. It makes sense that if you have experienced that type of depth of trauma, it forces you to connect. You know, it forces you to be aware of everything around you. Like I know, you know, for me, and I'm not going to go too much into it, but I'll make the comparison. For me, you know, I had a very fearful childhood, and I became hyper vigilant. You know, like I could feel when someone was approaching, or you know, you start to pick up on things that the average person wouldn't connect with, because you are so focused on your own safety and survival. And it's you become very, very in tune with your environment, because they're your marking points. They're your, okay, now I know how to prepare. And I think a lot of people that have experienced that trauma have been trained from a very young age to be that hypersensitive. You know, because it's a survival tactic. It's the fight or flight. And you, Luke, would know a lot about this doing the job that you do. And I've just got to quickly say, namaste to you, buddy. Like, you're out there, and, you know, it's a very, very full-on time right now. And for you to be doing that job, like, you know, thank you from all of us. It's, you know, being a frontline worker right now is pretty insane. So, you know, yeah. So I know that you would know what I'm talking about.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, because you have to be.
And I'm feeling it as well. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's getting late, and I feel like I could talk about this forever. But I just want to ask a couple of quick questions before we wrap up.
We're talking about home and away.
Yeah.
We're talking about home and away.
We're definitely going to talk about home and away, because we have to know. But I just want to run a quick little one thing by you. So the Asiatic bloc is something of a, you know, there's a lot of different energy around there. Do you think that's a cultural a cultural byproduct, like leftover energy of different beliefs that make the things happen there a bit more unique than the things that happen in other spots on site?
Absolutely. I think that absolutely, I think beliefs absolutely change the experience and the energy. So yeah, I think that there's definitely cultural influences. That just makes sense. That's, yeah, absolutely. And it is a very different type of energy. Yeah.
Definitely. All right, I'm going to ask you. I know. I'm going to ask you the big question, and it might not have been revealed yet, but so far, just think series 1. What has been the most prominent, exciting, like, oh my God moment of evidence that you've had?
I would say probably 2. 2 would be the case. One was whatever hit me in the safe. I'm still trying to prove that wrong.
Yeah.
But like that, I don't get freaked out a lot, you know, in general, but I was really rattled after that, I must say. Yeah, because that was very forceful. And so yeah,
it happened to you personally. It touched you.
It happened to me personally. Yeah, it did. And what was interesting about that is I had all my guards down, you see, because I was making a joke, because and it's the first time that I was ever kind of made a joke about a place, you know, because I'm usually pretty, you know, full on about being respectful, but you know, it just looked like nothing. It just looked like nothing. You get what I mean? I remember turning around to the camera guy, because she was saying, like, this is actually the most haunted area on site. And this was the night manager. And I stuck my head in. I looked back to the camera guy and I'm like, come on, man, this is nothing. This is a hole in the wall. You get what I mean? So, yeah, well, I copped it. But anyway, that was one. And I think you know, what happened in the shower blocks, and also in the laundry with the Portal Plus, because what the audience didn't see was with that app, we had like ridiculous amounts of hours of footage where all we heard was scramble, right? So nothing, million questions, nothing. And then in those 2 locations, to get such clear responses. You know, I was like, come on, man. What? Like, I was pretty freaked out. I must say, I'm like, this is weird, you know, because we were getting a whole ramble for such a long time. And then, you know, you ask very specific questions. You know, we asked a lot of specific questions and still got nothing. But in those two situations, you know, that was pretty weird.
Amazing. And I'm sure there's more to come by the sounds of it. So you've already mentioned it. You've already mentioned it. We can expect a series 2 and a series 3 of The Space Between.
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
That's so cool.
Yep. They're on their way.
So excited. And all still based in Q Station?
Look, it always kind of links back to Q Station because that's my base. And definitely in series 3, it very heavily comes back. It does the full circle and we come all the way back. Series 2 predominantly is about the Wakers Parkway and the Kelly Ghost, the phantom hitchhiking ghost. And we explore many other areas. So, and that's almost complete. So that's on its way.
Exciting. That's so exciting. Now, Luke did mention it before. We cannot let you go without jumping back to your past in front of the camera. Now, you were a busy girl, weren't you, back in the day? You managed to jump on some series.
Yeah.
I have to ask about the Summer Bay Ghost Dog.
Yeah. That was bloody weird. That was really weird. And funny enough, you know, a lot of people, not only on the set of Home and Away, but even back then there was All Saints that were filming in same studio. And the experience about the dog, that happened at Palm Beach. It was known on the set of Home and Away and All Saints and shows like that there was a lot of kind of activity in the set itself, in the studio itself, but also around the Northern Beaches. Like the Northern Beaches is known as, you know, this really weird vibe place. You know, everyone thinks it's so lovely because it's got lots of beaches, but you start to look at the history and you realize we have a very, very dark history on the Northern Beaches, and it's very insular, so people keep it very tightly closed. And when you live on the beaches, it's true, you hardly ever venture out. So, you know, yeah, it's quite an interesting place in general, the Northern Beaches, you know. So if you spend time there, you'll know what I mean.
I have to ask one more question about your acting career.
Yeah.
What was it like to be on Breakers? Because the hype around Breakers back in the day, it was going to revolutionize Australian television. What was that like to be? You're like, I'm here, I've made it, I'm on Breakers.
Yeah, well, no comment.
I love it. That's an off-camera conversation. I love it. It's all fun. Yeah. Well, look, I've had an amazing time chatting with you. Thank you for being so gracious with your time. It's getting late here in Australia now. We've kept you up late, but look,
and you guys have to join, guys. You have to come along and have some fun with us.
Absolutely.
You know, Adam and I will be there, and you know,
look, you call me, I'll be there.
A live.
We'll do some live crosses.
Well, thanks, guys. Thank you so much for your time.
So we can follow you on the Space Between Facebook page, yes?
Yeah, Facebook page, and I'm mainly on my personal Instagram. So my personal Instagram is just at Bianca_Biasi. Hit me up and I'll follow you back. We'll have fun.
Thank you so much for your time, Bianca. It's been amazing.
Thank you, Bianca.
You too. Thanks, guys. See you later. Thanks.
We look forward to seeing you.
Thank you. See you later. And Luke, you're a legend.